Wills.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be able to pay tribute to the life and work of Edward Gough Whitlam and to extend my condolences on behalf of the people of Wills to his surviving family members. Gough Whitlam was a towering figure in Australian political life. I think he was the greatest man that the Australian Labor Party has ever produced, and I think that he was the most influential Prime Minister during the course of the past 50 years, and to listen to the speeches on both sides of the House, you get a sense of certainly modern Australian political history being divided into before 1972 and after 1972. He did this after enlisting in the RAAF during the Second World War, which was of course a very dangerous thing to do. My father's brother John, after whom I have my middle name, did the same thing but did not return. In 1972 I was a Year 12 student and I had a bright orange "It's Time" sticker on my school bag. And I remember after the election one of my schoolmates said that he too was delighted that Gough had won the election, but believed that Gough would not be able to abolish conscription or take us out of Vietnam any time soon. And I was crestfallen by this realpolitik, but delighted when something like 24 hours later Gough's two-man cabinet did precisely that. His leadership and vision for Australia was one of the key things that inspired me to join the Australian Labor Party back in 1974. That was against the run of play because, of course, his government was thrown out in no uncertain manner in 1975. But I believe that his legacy has proved to be so long-standing that he can lay claim to being the most influential Prime Minister and political leader of our generation. And it's such a monumental body of work that I can't do it justice here, but I do want to mention a number of aspects to it. The first is the introduction of free tertiary education, which made such a difference in the lives of so many young Australians. And the more I look at this and the more I think about it, the more I think that it was a mistake for us to move away from that. Second, Medibank, which was of course the predecessor of Medicare, which gave Australia quite possibly the world's finest health system, in which everybody, rich and poor alike, has guaranteed access to high-quality health care. Third, environment protection. Gough took Australia into the realm of national environment protection, moving to protect the Great Barrier Reef from oil drilling, introducing the World Heritage Convention to Australia, ratifying that, ratifying the Ramsar Convention, legislating for the National Parks and Wildlife Act. And then the area of Indigenous affairs, passing legislation to ban discrimination against Aboriginal people, establishing land rights and native title, and returning land in the Northern Territory to the Gurindji people. People will always draw on the legacy of, or the aspects of someone's legacy that are consistent with their own views, and I'm no different in that. And I want to draw attention to the fact that in 1974 he wrote that population growth was first amongst those issues which was leading to traditional forms of democratic government being under challenge, and in July 1974 saying, "I do not envisage any dramatic increase in our present population, and indeed I would not wish to see one." Madam Speaker, no doubt he made mistakes, but the fact is that anyone who is Prime Minister makes hundreds of decisions, indeed thousands of decisions, and it's not possible to make thousands of decisions without doing that. And I think that you have to see his political circumstances against the background of coming to office after 23 years in opposition and bumping up against very entrenched forms of opposition in the public service and indeed right throughout Australian political life. You also have to have regard to his coming into office during that period of the OPEC oil shock in 1974, which generated unemployment and inflation throughout the Western world, and indeed very few leaders who were unlucky enough to be in power at that time survived for very long afterwards. He had titanic struggles with Malcolm Fraser, and I can remember United States political commentators and analysts at the time remarking on the abilities of Gough Whitlam and Malcolm Fraser and lamenting the fact that they didn't seem to have people of similar, comparable political stature or calibre in their own country. The best thing that we can do to honour Gough's work and legacy is to do everything that we can to protect it, whether it's access to tertiary education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's environment protection, whether it's Indigenous affairs and the rights of Aboriginal people. But I think more than all of those things, we should seek to honour the idea of politics as an honourable profession, because Gough Whitlam would never have dreamed of a political career as a stepping stone to a cushy corporate job post-politics. The idea of taking on a job as a corporate lobbyist or company director would have been anathema to him. What he did was to go into public life because he believed in the capacity of individuals, in the capacity of governments to make a difference, to improve people's lives, to leave an Australia which was improved and which was for the better. It is often said that everything we achieve by standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. This was never more true than of Edward Gough Whitlam.
The question